Aloha and welcome back to the Siren Circle. I am Alicia Marie, and I am so grateful to have you sitting in this circle with me today for episode 11. If you are fresh to the show, welcome in. You picked a really great week to join us. We took a little time away to regroup, and I'm excited to be back. Today, we are opening up the vault on one of the most talked about, heavily memed, and let's be honest, completely feared transits in the entire cosmic dictionary. Today is all about astrology survival, your guide to navigating your Saturn return. Now, if you were with me for the last episode, we were riding some really incredibly fast, high frequency airwaves, exploring the sudden electric lightning flashes of Uranus in Gemini. It was a lot of buzzy, fast moving energy for the mind. But we are going to balance everything out perfectly, and today we're shifting drastically. We're coming out of the clouds and dropping right into more of a grounded energy. We are leaving the unpredictable lightning behind to meet the heavy, solid, and unshakable gravity of Saturn. Just hearing the words Saturn Return is enough to send a little shiver down the spine of anyone who has dipped their toes into astrology. We see the jokes online about lives falling apart, engagements breaking off, careers collapsing, and people hitting their late 20s feeling like the universe has personally targeted them. There is an ambient anxiety around this transit that makes it feel like a cosmic curse. But I want you to take a deep, grounding breath right now and let that narrative go. Saturn is not out to get you. Saturn is the ultimate celestial taskmaker, the architect of time, and the keeper of boundaries. A Saturn return isn't a punishment. It is essentially this cosmic coming of age ritual. It is a mandatory performance review from the universe designed to audit your life, to prune away anything that's shaky, and pressure you into stepping into your true, unshakable personal authority. It's how carbon gets turned into a diamond. Because this transit carries so much weight, we are doing a massive, extended deep dive today to give you a literal survival guide. In this episode, we are going to break down the exact mechanics of what a Saturn return actually is and the precise math of when it's going to hit your life. We're going to look at the distinct somatic symptoms of this shift, that heavy ticking clock feeling that forces you to grow up overnight. For the very first time on the show, we are running a double layer class comparing the first Saturn return in your late 20s to the second Saturn return in your late 50s so that we can understand how this energy matures over your lifetime. Then we're going to go down the line with a little house by house guide so you know exactly which department of your life is currently up for structural review before wrapping up with a practical survival toolkit and the tarot archetypes that you need to pass Saturn's test with flying colors. Before we officially open the textbook with the Taskmaster and figure out how to ace this exam, I want to take a brief moment to thank today's sponsor, which is my business, The Magic Siren. Going through a Saturn return can feel incredibly isolating because it often requires you to stand entirely on your own 2 feet and walk a slightly solitary path for a while. If you are currently in the thick of your return, or you see it on the horizon and you want an exact personalized map of how this structural reconstructing is going to play out in your unique birth chart, I am here to hold space for you. I offer specialized transition deep dives, personalized natal blueprint readings, and multi-week mentorship programs over at themagicsiren.com. They are all designed to help you navigate these heavy milestones with grace and strategy. And as a thank you for being a listener of this podcast, you can use the promo code Siren Circle at checkout to get 10% off any of my sessions, workshops, or readings. Let's look at your chart together and turn this intense pressure into your ultimate superpower. All right, let's go ahead, sit up a little straighter, plant your feet firmly on the ground to honor the planet of structure, and let's dive into the blueprint. Let's see how to survive and thrive during your Saturn return. To successfully navigate this transit, we have to strip away the internet drama and look at the actual mechanics of the planet itself. In astrology, Saturn represents the law of reality. It is the planet of time, boundaries, discipline, structure, and karma. While a planet like Jupiter wants to expand, say yes, and give endless options, Saturn arrives to contract, establish limits, and ask the tough questions. Is what you are building actually sustainable? Saturn is the archetype of the architect and the master teacher. It rules in the bones and the skeletal system of our physical bodies because it represents the foundational framework that holds everything else up. It is not interested in a quick fix, superficial appearances, or shortcuts. Saturn cares about integrity, endurance, and the long term reality of your choices. So, what is a return in astronomical terms? Saturn has had a very slow, heavy orbit around the Sun, taking roughly 29 and a half years to complete one full journey through the zodiac. A Saturn return happens when this great task maker travels all the way around the wheel and returns to the exact degree, sign, and house that it occupied in the sky at the precise second you took your first breath. It is a literal cosmic audit. The universe steps into the room, flips on the bright overhead lights, and initiates a strict performance review of how you've spent the last 3 decades of your life. Because of that 29 and a half year cycle, everyone experiences their first major Saturn return between the ages of 27 and 30. It is a universal human milestone. It marks the definitive astrological boundary when you cross over from youth into true adulthood. Up until your late 20s, you are essentially living out the programming, expectations, and structures handed down to you by your parents, your teachers, and society. You are operating on an inherited framework. But when Saturn returns to its natal birthplace in your chart, it says the trial period is officially over. It is time to find out who you are when you stand entirely on your own 2 feet. This is why the energy can feel so intensely heavy or restrictive when it first arrives. Saturn acts like a cosmic quality control inspector, tapping on each wall of your life. If you have built your career, your relationships, or your personal identity on a foundation of true integrity, alignment, and hard work, well, Saturn's arrival will solidify those structures, bringing you well deserved promotions, long term commitments, and a deep sense of self mastery. But if you have built your life on a foundation of people pleasing, denial, shortcuts, or if you're working a job you hate just for the paycheck, or staying in a relationship that passed its expiration date years ago because you're afraid of being alone, Saturn will ruthlessly shake those walls until they crumble. It forces you to witness the flaws in your foundation so that you can clear the debris and build something that actually can withstand the test of time. Now that you know the math, let's talk about what this actually feels like on a day to day level, because the symptoms of a Saturn return are incredibly distinct. Long before you even check your birth chart, you will feel this energy shifting the atmosphere of your internal world. The very first symptom is a heavy, inescapable feeling that the clock is ticking. You wake up one day and suddenly things that used to satisfy you or distract you just don't work anymore. The superficial parties, the temporary hookups, the unfulfilling jobs, or the friendships built purely on convenience start to feel completely empty. You develop a sudden, intense urge to grow up, settle down, and make your life mean something. It's an underlying existential pressure that whispers, what am I actually doing with my life? This brings us to the second major symptom, which is the great pruning. Saturn is the planetary head shears of the zodiac. During this transit, relationships, careers, and dynamics that are built on shaky foundations will begin to feel incredibly heavy and draining until they are ultimately dissolved. You might experience a sudden breakup of a long term relationship, or find yourself completely burnt out and walking away from a career path you spent years preparing for. This happens because Saturn exposes the gap between who you actually are and the life you've been living. The pressure builds until anything that is unaligned is forced to fall away. It can feel like a series of losses, but in reality, it is a massive boundary being drawn on your behalf, removing the clutter so that you can focus on your true calling. I've been reflecting a lot on Saturn's timing and its relationship with the structure in my own life. Just over the last year, as I've been anchoring my business, restructuring my mentorship programs for the Magic Siren, and making major life pivots, including navigating life out here in Costa Rica, I've had to sit face to face with Saturn's demands for absolute discipline and boundaries. I've had to look at where I was leaking energy, where I was letting fear dictate my business decisions, and where I needed to step into a much higher level of professional sovereignty. Saturn forced me to cut out the BS, show up with radical consistency, and build a sustainable framework for my work. It wasn't always comfortable, and it required a lot of solitary focus, but it did teach me that true freedom can only come after you build the discipline to support it. The third major symptom is the appearance of external blocks and authority figures. You might suddenly find yourself dealing with an incredibly difficult boss, a rigid landlord, financial restrictions, or bureaucratic delays that feel like a brick wall. When Saturn wants you to slow down and look at a situation, it will literally halt your progress. If you try to push through, scream at the wall, or bypass the rules, Saturn will just make the restriction tighter. The symptom of frustration is always a sign that you are trying to use old, childish methods of manipulation or avoidance to solve an adult problem. Saturn is demanding that you stop blaming outside forces, take a hard look at reality, and respond with maturity, patience, and impeccable personal responsibility. Now, let's open up a branch that is rarely talked about in mainstream astrology circles, but it is absolutely crucial for understanding the true rhythm of your life. Most of the memes and the articles that you see online focus entirely on the first Saturn return, the one that hits in your late 20s. But Saturn doesn't just visit once and leave you alone forever. If you are blessed with a long life, you will experience two, sometimes even three of these major cosmic audits. To truly survive and master this energy, we have to understand the massive evolutionary difference between the first Saturn return and the second Saturn return. They are two entirely different chapters of maturity, operating on completely different spiritual frequencies. So let's start by breaking down the first Saturn return, which occurs between the ages of 27 and 30. The core theme of the first return is individuality and foundation. Up until this point in your life, you are essentially a product of your upbringing. Your beliefs, your career choices, your relationship habits, and your relationship with money have all been heavily influenced or entirely dictated by your family dynamics, ancestral programming, and societal expectations. You've been wearing clothes that were tailored for you by someone else. When Saturn returns for the first time, it arrives to strip away that inherited armor. It forces you to ask, How much of this life is actually mine? And how much of it did I build just to make my parents proud or to fit into society's neat little boxes? This is why the first return often feels like a crisis of identity. It is a painful but necessary extraction from the collective matrix. You are being pushed to break away from codependent dynamics, establish firm boundaries with your family of origin, and claim your own authority. It is the definitive death of youth and birth of self actualized adulthood. The pressure here is all about building your own sustainable scaffolding, learning how to budget, how to hold a stable career, how to manage your health, and how to take absolute radical responsibility for your own happiness. It's about laying the concrete foundation for the next 30 years of your existence. Now let's fast forward 30 years down the line to the second Saturn return, which lands between the ages of 56 and 60. If you're listening to this and you are in your late 50s, or you're watching a parent navigate this stage of life, the energetic landscape here shifts beautifully. The theme of the second return is not about building a foundation, it's about legacy, alignment, and true spiritual sovereignty. By the time you reach 56, you have already played the game of adulthood. You've built a career, raised the family, accumulated the material possessions, or navigated the structures of the physical world. When Saturn returns the second time, it doesn't care about your resume or your bank account in the way that it did in the first return. It looks at the structure of your life and asks, has all this been empty maintenance? Or did you actually build a life that honors your soul? The second return acts as a deep audit of your alignment. It marks the transition out of the hectic, achievement oriented phase of adulthood and launches you directly into the archetype of the crone, the elder, or the wise sage. This is the window where people look at retirement not just as an exit from a job, but as total liberation of their time. It's when you realize that your time on this earth is actively growing shorter, which creates a beautiful intolerance for anything superficial or fake. During the second return, people often completely pivot away from material ambition and focus on spiritual mastery, mentorship, creativity, and passing down their accumulated wisdom to the next generation. It's about pruning away the noise of the world so that you can step into absolute peace. The most beautiful thing about both of these transits, and the ultimate secret to surviving them, is understanding the concept of Saturn reward. Internet astrology frames Saturn as this cruel entity that just loves to take things away from you. But in traditional astrology, Saturn is known as the planet of exact justice. It never takes away anything that is actually yours, and it never demands effort without compensating you beautifully. If you do the hard work during your return, if you face the uncomfortable truths, draw the boundaries, cut out the habits that are keeping you small, and show up with discipline, Saturn will hand you a reward that no other planet can give you: an unshakable sense of self mastery, deep emotional and physical resilience, and a life that is built to last. It turns the raw, chaotic pressure of your experience into an absolute diamond of wisdom. Okay, so now that we understand the deep evolutionary mechanics of this transit and how it matures over a lifetime, we need to locate exactly where this performance review is happening in your life. Because while everyone born within a certain 2 to 3 year window goes through their Saturn return around the same time, the way it manifests depends entirely on your unique natal blueprint. To find where the cosmic task maker is setting up its chalkboard, you have to look at the specific astrological house that Saturn occupies in your chart. Your houses represent the different departments of your life, the actual stages where the planetary actors play out their roles. In my practice, I always utilize the Placidus house system to map out these boundaries with exact structural precision. Whichever house holds Saturn in your natal chart is the precise area of life where you are being called to grow up, draw boundaries, face reality, and endure the great restructuring. To make this survival guide as practical as possible, we are going to walk through the wheel and look at exactly how this audit will hit, grouped by the 4 core quadrants of human experience. Let's start with the angular houses, 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th houses. If your Saturn return is happening in one of the angular houses, you are experiencing the most visible, high impact, and foundational restructuring possible. These houses represent the literal 4 pillars of your earthly reality. Saturn in the 1st house. The audit is hitting your literal self, your identity, your physical body, and your personal sovereignty. Your return feels like a complete ego death and rebirth. You are being forced to stop looking to others for validation, step out of people pleasing, and take responsibility for how you show up in the world. It often brings a physical shedding of old layers, a complete overhaul of your personal style, and a demand to build unshakable self-resilience. Saturn in the 4th house. The lightning is striking your private sanctuary, your home, your family roots, and your inner emotional foundations. This return will require you to untangle yourself from ancestral karma and childhood programming. You may experience a sudden physical move, a major restructuring of your living situation, or the need to draw incredibly firm boundaries with your family of origin. Saturn here demands that you build your own emotional security from within rather than looking for a sense of safety outside yourself. Saturn in the 7th house. The task maker is stepping directly into your house of committed partnerships, business alliances, and one-on-one relationships. This is one of the classic areas for the great pruning. Shaky, codependent, or unaligned relationships will ruthlessly dissolve under this pressure. If you are single, you will find yourself completely turned off by casual hookups and deeply drawn to mature, stable, independent partners. You are learning how to maintain your absolute individuality while building a relationship based on mutual respect and real-world commitment. Saturn in the 10th house. The audit is hitting your career, your public legacy, your status, and your professional calling. If you have been working a job or climbing a corporate ladder out of pure societal obligation or to make someone else proud, Saturn will bring that structure crashing down. You can expect sudden career pivots, professional delays, or an intense influx of responsibility that forces you to step into true leadership. Saturn here wants you to build a public legacy that reflects your genuine authority, not a superficial title. Let's move into the succeedant houses, 2nd, 5th, 8th, and 11th. If your Saturn return is occurring in the succeedant house, the energy focuses on what you own, what you value, how you create, and how you anchor yourself within your wider community. Saturn in the 2nd house. The pressure is hitting your wallet, your liquid financial resources, and your core sense of self-worth. Saturn here is teaching you financial maturity. You will likely face financial restrictions, delays in income, or unexpected expenses that force you to throw out messy spending habits. You'll learn how to budget and build sustainable wealth. The deeper spiritual lesson here is realizing that your true value as a human being is completely independent of your bank account or material possessions. Saturn in the fifth house. The task maker is auditing your house of creativity, romance, fertility, self expression, and joy. This can literally feel like a bit of a fun blocker, as Saturn demands that you take your creative gifts seriously. The casual, superficial flings drop away, and you are pushed to turn your creative hobbies into actual, structured businesses or disciplined practice. You are learning how to express your inner child with absolute authenticity without waiting for an audience to applaud you first. Saturn in the eighth house. The audit drops into the deep alchemy waters of intimacy, psychology, investments, and shared resources. This is a deep internal transit that forces you to look at your shadow. You will be challenged to restructure how you handle joint finances, inheritances, or debts, while simultaneously breaking free from subtle psychological power struggles and control dynamics with others. Saturn here is forcing you to learn the art of emotional surrender and energetic clean living. Saturn in the 11th house. The universe is completely shaking up your social circles, your networks, your long-term dreams, and your global impact. You will experience a massive pruning of your friendships during this return. Casual acquaintances or groups that no longer match your frequency will quietly fall away. You're being pushed to align with highly innovative, disciplined, or mission-driven communities, and to take radical responsibility for how your unique gifts can actively serve the collective future. And finally, the cadent houses, 3rd, 6th, 9th, and 12th. If your Saturn return is unfolding in the cadent house, your evaluation is taking place within the realms of your daily mindset, your lifestyle routines, your belief systems, and your spiritual unconscious. Saturn in the 3rd house. The audit is hitting your everyday mindset, your local environment, your siblings, and your communication style. Your brain is undergoing a total rewiring. Saturn here demands that you stop scattering your focus across 10,000 different ideas and instead develop mental discipline. It is a phenomenal window for returning to school, mastering a specific technical skill, or writing a book that you've been putting off. You're learning to make your words carry actual weight and authority. Saturn in the 6th house. The task maker is infusing your daily routines, your physical health, your job environment, and your acts of service. If you've been living on an unstructured lifestyle, neglecting your physical vehicle, or burning the candle at both ends, Saturn will hand you a physical reality check. You will be forced to implement strict, slow, daily wellness habits, organize your schedule with military precision, and learn the art of saying no to exhausting labor that drains your vitality. Saturn in the 9th house. Your entire worldview, philosophy, higher education, and belief system are up for a complete structural review. If you have been blindly following a specific religion, dogmatic ideology, or political stance out of habit, Saturn will bring experiences that shatter those rigid paradigms. You might find yourself dropping everything to pursue advanced academic degrees or navigating intense hurdles during long-distance travel. You are being challenged to build an unshakable, personally lived philosophy of truth. Saturn in the 12th house. The Great Awakener is moving through the deeply mystical, hidden realm of your subconscious mind, your isolation, and your spiritual completion. This is a highly internal, solitary, and psychological return. Saturn here acts as an anchor in the dark, forcing you to face deep seated fears, hidden addictions, or ancestral patterns that you have tried to run from. You are being asked to clear out the spiritual closets, spend time in quiet solitude, and develop a deeply disciplined spiritual practice that connects you directly to the divine. Now that you know exactly which department of your life Saturn is auditing, let's talk about strategy. How do you actually pass this cosmic exam? Because Saturn energy responds to very specific codes of conduct, and if you try to use old tactics like manipulation, avoidance, or playing the victim, Saturn will only make the pressure heavier. To move from survival into absolute mastery, you need a concrete toolkit. Your very first tool, and the absolute foundation of this entire guide, is radical responsibility. I've said it quite a few times throughout this episode. Saturn is the planet of karma, which simply means cause and effect. Under this transit, you must completely stop blaming external forces for your current circumstances. If your career feels stagnant, stop blaming your boss. If your relationship is draining, stop blaming your partner. Saturn demands that you look at the mirror and ask, how did my own lack of boundaries, my own fear of change, or my own choices contribute to this exact reality? The moment you step out of victimhood and take 100,000% ownership of your life, Saturn shifts from a harsh warden into your most powerful ally. Responsibility is the secret key that unlocks your personal authority. Your second tool is sustainable scaffolding. I mentioned this earlier. Because Saturn rules the architecture of our lives, it responds beautifully to slow, steady, daily discipline. During a return, people often make the mistake of trying to fix everything overnight through extreme or aggressive overhauls, like starting a massive diet, quitting their job, cutting off all their friends in the same week. Saturn absolutely hates that. That is chaotic energy. Saturn wants you to build small, solid habits that you can maintain for the next 30 years. It wants you to establish clean boundaries with your time, organize your finances, and commit to daily routines that keep your nervous system regulated. It is the magic of the compounding effect. Small, consistent actions taken with integrity every single day add up to an unshakable foundation over time. To help us visualize this process, we can look to the beautiful archetype of the tarot, specifically the World and the Hermit. These two cards hold the perfect energetic blueprint for passing Saturn's tests. The World card represents completion, cycles, and firm boundaries. It is the ultimate Saturn card, showing up to remind you that your Saturn return is the final chapter of a major 30-year evolutionary cycle. It signifies that an old version of your life is officially ending, and you must have the courage to close the door fully so a new matrix can form. The World card teaches you that boundaries are not prisons, they are necessary to protect your energetic peace and allow you to harvest the rewards of your hard work. The Hermit card is traditionally associated with Virgo, but deeply Saturn in its wisdom. It represents the solitary path to maturity. It tells us that during your return, you cannot look to the crowd to tell you who you are. You have to take a step back, pull your energy inward, and hold up your own lantern in the dark. The Hermit teaches us the beauty of solitude, self-reflection, and inner maturity. It shows you that true wisdom isn't something you buy or copy from someone else. It is something that you forage in the quiet spaces when you finally choose to listen to your own soul. When you combine the structure of the world with the inner wisdom of the hermit, and you back it up with daily, real world discipline, you become completely bulletproof under this transit. You stop fearing the taskmaster because you realize the pressure you are experiencing isn't designed to break you down. It is designed to turn the raw, unrefined material of your life into an absolute masterpiece. Okay, so we have laid down some incredibly solid foundation today, shifting our focus from the electric, unpredictable airwaves of Uranus straight down into the deep, foundational gravity of Saturn. Navigating a Saturn return, whether you're stepping into it for the first time in your late 20s or stepping into your elder sovereignty in your late 50s, is never about the universe trying to break you. It is about the universe loving you enough to stop you from wasting your precious time on things, people, and careers that do not mirror your true soul architecture. It is the definitive moment where you choose to stop living a script written by someone else and finally pick up the pen to author your own reality. So, my survival challenge for you this week is to actively lean into the code of the taskmaster. I want you to step away from the noise of the crowd, tap into that steady hermit energy, and look ruthlessly at the house placement we discussed today. Grab your journal and ask yourself with total, radical honesty, where am I still playing small or avoiding responsibility because I am terrified of my own authority? What is one firm boundary I need to draw this week to honor the person I am becoming? Write it down, make the commitment, and take one small, disciplined action to back it up. Saturn is watching, and it will reward your integrity every single time. Next week, we are going to take a beautiful mystical turn. After dealing with the heavy, structured blueprints of Saturn, we are going to lighten the energy completely and dive into the magical, synchronous language of the universe. Next week's episode is all about angel numbers. We are going to crack the code on why you keep seeing sequences like 111, 444, or 777 on the clock, receipts, and out in the world. I am going to teach you how to decipher these spiritual whispers, how to tell the difference between a genuine message and a mental pattern matching, and how to use these numbers as real-time GPS systems for your manifestation journey. It is going to be a highly magical, high vibe episode, so make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss a single second of it. Thank you so much for anchoring your energy with me today, for doing the heavy lifting, and for being such a vital part of this circle. If today's episode brought you a sense of clarity or helped soothe your Saturn anxiety, it would mean the world to me if you would leave a 5-star rating, write a review, or screenshot this episode and share it with a friend who might be in the thick of their own cosmic audit right now. Your voice is how our community grows, and I am endlessly grateful for your support. And remember, if you want to pull up your own birth chart together and find out the exact degree, sign, and house where your Saturn return is striking so we can map out your ultimate survival blueprint, come book a session with me at themagicsiren.com. Whether you need a deep dive transition reading or a multi-week mentorship, I am here to help you build what lasts. Don't forget to use that code Siren Circle at checkout to claim your 10% listener discount on all of my live readings and services. Take beautiful care of yourself this week. Stand tall, protect your boundaries, honor your time, and trust the architecture of your journey. Sending you so much strength and grounded energy from right here in Costa Rica. Until next time, stay magical. Mahalo.